The Cathari dreadnought. Jarkol hung in the silent dark near the edge of the Andromeda arm. Its hull shimmered with energy shields, and its weapons hummed softly, ready for anything. The Cathari were a proud species, tall, armored, and confident in their place at the top of the galactic order. They had crushed dozens of weaker races. Nothing surprised them anymore. Then they saw it. A small, battered ship drifted toward them. It looked old, slow, and harmless. Its hull was patched in places, and its engines sputtered weakly. Scans showed no weapons, no shields, and only a handful of life signs. The Cathari commander Vraktol snorted through his breathing mask. "A human freighter," he said. "Lost or fleeing. Either way, it is ours." Humans were new to the galactic scene. Their world, Earth, had only recently cracked faster than light travel. Most species saw them as primitive, noisy, and unimportant. The Cathari had heard rumors of human aggression, but they dismissed them as fear-mongering from lesser races. After all, what could a species that still used chemical rockets and metal bullets do against plasma cannons and gravity lances? Vraktol ordered a boarding party. 6 elite Cathari shock troopers, clad in black armor, armed with pulse rifles and neural disruptors, launched from the Jarkol in a sleek boarding pod. They docked with the human ship without resistance. The airlock hissed open. Inside, the corridors were dim, cold, and quiet. No alarms. "No movement, pathetic," muttered one trooper over the comms. They didn't even seal the inner doors. They moved deeper into the ship, boots clanging on metal grates. The humans must have abandoned it, they thought. Maybe they ran out of air. Maybe they panicked. Either way, this would be an easy salvage. They were wrong. From a dark side passage, a single shot rang out. Not a plasma blast or energy beam, just a sharp crack like stone hitting metal. The lead Cathari trooper jerked backward, a small red hole blooming in his chest plate. His armor hadn't even registered a threat. Before the others could react, 2 more shots followed. 2 more troopers dropped. "Ambush!" Vraktol shouted from the command deck, watching the feed.
"Fall back!"
But it was too late. From vents, closets, and behind loose panels, humans appeared. Not many, just 5 of them. They wore simple gray uniforms, no helmets, and carried blocky rifles that looked like scrap metal. Their faces were tired, dirty, but calm. One of them, a woman with short brown hair, tossed a small metal ball into the corridor. It exploded with a loud bang and a flash of light. The Cathari, blinded and disoriented, fired wildly. Their shots melted the walls but hit nothing. The humans moved like ghosts. They didn't charge. They didn't shout. They just flowed. One dropped to a knee and fired 3 quick shots. Another slid behind a crate and reloaded in 2 seconds. A third used a fire extinguisher to spray foam into a Cathari's faceplate, then stabbed him in the neck with a knife. In less than 90 seconds, 4 of the 6 Cathari were dead. The last 2 tried to retreat to their pod, but the airlock slammed shut. A voice came over the ship's comms, calm, flat, with no accent the Cathari translator could place. "Drop your weapons. Hands up." The 2 survivors obeyed. They were stunned. These weren't warriors. They weren't elites. They looked like workers, like people who fixed engines or drove trucks. Yet they had killed Cathari shock troopers, some of the best fighters in the hegemony, with nothing but bullets and brains. Back on the Jarkol, Vraktol stared at the footage, his claws digging into the armrests of his command throne. "Who are they?" he demanded. "Special forces." "Bio-enhanced what?" His intelligence officer checked the data again. "Sir, their IDs match standard military tags. No genetic markers. No cybernetics. They're listed as regular Marines, from a ship called UNSC Resolute. It was reported missing 3 weeks ago during a supply run." "Regulars," Vraktol said. "That's impossible." But the proof was on screen. 5 tired humans, standing over the bodies of his elite soldiers, calmly securing prisoners and checking their ammo. One of them even offered a canteen to a wounded Cathari, not out of kindness but because dead prisoners don't talk. Vraktol ordered the Jarkol to pull back. He didn't fire. He didn't risk another boarding. Something about those humans, their eyes, their silence, the way they moved like they'd done this 1,000 times, filled him with a cold unease he hadn't felt since his first battle. Later, in the war logs, he wrote, "Encountered human special forces near Nebula X7, extreme lethality. Recommend Tier 9 threat classification." He didn't know the truth. There were no special forces on that ship. Just 5 regulars from the Terran Marine Corps, stranded, low on food, and doing their duty. They hadn't even known the Cathari were coming. They'd just been waiting, because that's what soldiers do. And far away on a blue-green planet called Earth, millions more just like them trained, worked, and lived unaware that across the stars, a mighty empire had just learned to fear the word regular. News of the fight near Nebula X7 spread fast. In the galaxy, information moved quicker than ships. Within days, every major power had heard the story. A Cathari dreadnought, one of the strongest warships in the hegemony, had been beaten by a handful of humans on a broken freighter. The Cathari called them Special Forces. That name stuck. At first, most species didn't believe it. The Velen, a race of tall, many-eyed insectoids, laughed in their council chambers. Humans? The ones who still burn fuel to leave their planet? Impossible. The Marathi beings made of living crystal hummed doubtfully. Their tech is centuries behind. They lack even basic energy shielding. But then it happened again. A Velen listening post near the Helios Drift went silent. When a rescue ship arrived, they found the station intact, but all 12 Velen scouts were dead. No signs of a big battle, just small holes in their carapaces, burn marks from simple fire, and human boot prints on the floor. A data pad left behind showed a short message. "You were watching Earth, stop." The Velen were furious. They sent a strike team to a human mining outpost on asteroid G12. It was supposed to be easy, just a few unarmed workers. But when the Velen landed, they walked into a trap. Wires snapped taut, releasing nets. Pipes burst, spraying supercooled liquid. Then gunfire came from hidden vents. Again, it was just regular humans. Miners with rifles, engineers with pipe bombs, medics throwing smoke canisters. The Velen lost 8 soldiers before they fled. This time, they didn't call them workers. They called them Special Forces, too. On Xylos Prime, the capital of the Galactic Conquered, species gathered in the Great Dome Hall to discuss the human problem. The Cathari envoy stood tall, his voice sharp. "These humans are not what they seem. Their entire military may be elite. We must treat them as a Tier 9 threat." The Marathi representative shimmered as it spoke. "We scanned their homeworld. No massive armies, no orbital weapons, just cities, farms, and small bases. How can every human be a soldier?" "Maybe they are all soldiers," said a small, nervous delegate from the Rilken Union. "My traders saw human children playing war games in the streets. They used sticks as rifles." Laughter followed, but it was uneasy. Back on Earth, no one knew what the galaxy was saying about them. On Mars Colony 3, a young private named Diaz cleaned his rifle after a training drill. His sergeant walked by and said, "Good work today, Diaz." "Thanks, Sarge," Diaz replied. "Just doing my job." He had no idea that light years away, his face, copied from a blurry security feed, was being shown in war rooms as an example of a human Special Forces operative. The truth was simple. Earth had no secret super soldiers. The people fighting were regular troops, Marines, Army grunts, Navy security, trained to survive, adapt, and protect. They used what they had, old weapons, clever tricks, and teamwork. But to aliens who fought with drones, energy shields, and AI-controlled armies, this raw human style of war seemed terrifying. One Cathari analyst studied every report. He noticed something strange. The humans never used fancy tech. No cloaking, no mind control, no plasma blades. Just bullets, blades, and brains. And they always fought for each other. If one was hurt, 2 would drag him to safety while a 3rd covered them. If ammo ran low, they reused enemy weapons. If power failed, they used flashlights and hand signals. "They don't rely on machines," the analyst wrote in his report. "They rely on each other. That makes them unpredictable." Meanwhile, on a remote listening post near the Orion Spur, a human radio operator named Chen picked up a strange signal. It was a Cathari broadcast, poorly encrypted. She translated it with basic software. The message said, "All units avoid lone human vessels. Assume all crew are Tier 0 operatives. Do not engage without heavy backup." Chen blinked. "Tier 0? What's that?" She sent the message up the chain. Hours later, High Command on Earth finally understood. The galaxy thought every human soldier was a super soldier. They called them Special Forces, but they were just regulars. General Reyes, head of Earth Defense, sat in his office and rubbed his temples. "We can't tell them the truth," he said to his aide. "If they find out our Special Forces are just kids from Ohio and Jakarta with basic training, they'll attack in force." "But sir," the aide said. Won't they find out eventually? Maybe, Rhea said. But until then, let them be scared of the regulars. Across the galaxy, fear grew. Trade ships avoided human space. Patrols doubled near human colonies. Species that once mocked Earth now spoke of it in hushed tones. Did you hear? A single human squad held off a full Myrathi scout fleet on Luna Station. Is it true they can fight without sleep? I heard they eat metal for breakfast. None of it was true. But belief is powerful. On a dusty training field in Kenya, a group of new recruits ran drills under the hot sun. They carried heavy packs, shouted commands, and practiced clearing rooms made of old shipping containers. Their instructor, a scarred veteran named Captain Nwosu, yelled, "Move faster! You think the enemy will wait for you to catch your breath?" The recruits groaned but pushed harder. They were tired, sweaty, and far from home. None of them felt special. They were just doing what they signed up for. But light years away in the dark halls of alien war councils, their kind was now the stuff of nightmares. Not because they were enhanced, not because they had magic weapons, but because they were ordinary and still unbeatable, and the galaxy began to dread not the special forces, but the regulars. The Cathari had had enough. They could not let the humans grow stronger. They decided to strike first. Their target was Epsilon 9, a small human mining colony on a cold, rocky moon orbiting a dead star. It had no big cities, no fancy defenses, just a few domes, some drills, and about 200 people. Most were miners, engineers, and support staff. Only 30 were soldiers, and they were not special forces. They were just regular Terran army troops led by a tired major named Elena Ruiz. The Cathari sent a full invasion fleet, 3 warships, 2 troop carriers, and over 500 elite soldiers. They expected to take the colony in hours, maybe less. After all, what could a handful of humans do against a full Cathari assault? They were wrong. When the Cathari ships dropped from warp, alarms blared across Epsilon 9. Major Ruiz didn't panic. She had trained for this. She gave one order over the base comms. All hands, battle stations. Civilians to the deep bunker. Soldiers, hold the line. The humans had no energy shields, no plasma turrets, but they had something else. Time, smarts, and everything around them. First, they blew up the main mining laser, not as a weapon, but to blind the Cathari sensors with a flash of white light. Then they flooded the outer tunnels with coolant gas, freezing the first wave of Cathari troops as they tried to enter. The aliens' armor cracked in the sudden cold. Ruiz's soldiers didn't fight in open fields. They fought in tight corridors behind broken machinery, inside storage rooms. They used the colony itself as a weapon. One team rigged a cargo loader to drop heavy crates on Cathari squads. Another turned the water reclamation system into a trap, flooding a hallway, then shocking it with live wires. The Cathari kept coming. They had numbers. They had better guns, but every step forward cost them dearly. A Cathari captain reported back to his commander, "The humans are everywhere. They use vents, pipes, even laundry chutes. We cannot tell where they will strike next." What the Cathari didn't understand was that these humans weren't just soldiers. The miners knew every tunnel. The cooks knew how to make smoke bombs from kitchen chemicals. The medics set up fake aid stations to lure enemies into ambushes. Even the kids helped, carrying messages, hiding spare ammo, watching cameras. On day 5, the Cathari tried to take the central dome. Ruiz's people were low on food, low on ammo, but not low on will. They welded doors shut, set up barricades from metal beds and tool carts, and waited. When the Cathari broke through, they were met with shotgun blasts, thrown wrenches, and grenades made from fuel canisters. A young private named Jax, barely 19, held a hallway alone for 20 minutes with just a pistol and a knife. He ran out of bullets, so he used his helmet to bash a Cathari in the face, then stole the alien's own rifle. He didn't survive, but he bought time, and time was all Ruiz needed. On day 12, the Cathari brought in heavy walkers, tall machines with plasma cannons. They rolled toward the last dome. But the humans had one last trick. They'd spent days digging under the ice, planting old mining charges. When the walkers passed over, Ruiz pressed a button. The ground exploded. 2 walkers sank into the crater, trapped. The Cathari commander, tired and angry, ordered a final push. "Burn it all," he said. But as his troops stormed the command bunker, they found only 10 humans left standing. They were covered in dirt, bleeding, some with broken arms. But they stood in a line, rifles ready. Behind them, civilians, men, women, even children, held tools, pipes, anything they could use. The Cathari hesitated. These were not super soldiers. These were exhausted people. Yet they refused to run. A Cathari lieutenant raised his weapon. Then he saw something that chilled him. One of the humans, a woman with a bandaged head, smiled. Not a crazy smile, just calm, like she knew they would win even if they died. That's when the Cathari realized the truth. It wasn't about weapons or armor. It was about heart. And these humans had more of it than any army in the galaxy. They captured the bunker, but at a cost. Over 200 Cathari dead. Their fleet damaged. Their pride shattered. Inside the bunker, they found logs, messages, and personal notes. One note, written in shaky handwriting, said, "Tell Mom I did my job." Another said, "If you're reading this, keep fighting. Don't let them take Earth." The Cathari commander read these words. He looked at the faces of the prisoners, pale, hungry, but unbroken. He remembered the reports from Nebula X7 from the Veln outpost from Luna Station. Always the same story. Always regular humans. He turned to his second-in-command and said quietly, "We were wrong. They are not special forces. They are all like this." Back on their ship, he sent a coded message to High Command. Epsilon 9 taken. But victory feels like defeat. Recommend immediate reclassification. All human ground units, regular or not, are Tier 0 threats. Do not underestimate them again. On Earth, news of the siege spread. People mourned the dead, but they also stood taller. They knew now that the galaxy was watching, and they knew something else. Being a regular human was enough, because on a frozen moon, 30 soldiers and 200 civilians had held off an empire, and they almost won. After the Battle of Epsilon 9, the galaxy could no longer ignore Earth. The Cathari had won the moon, but they lost something bigger: confidence. Their reports spoke of humans who fought like ghosts, who turned tools into weapons, and who never gave up, even when outnumbered 10 to 1. Other species began to wonder, what if the humans weren't just tough? What if they were something new? So the Galactic Concord sent envoys to Earth. 3 ships arrived in orbit, small, unarmed, and flying white flags. One carried a Cathari diplomat, another a Mirathi elder, and the third a Veln observer. They asked for a meeting. Not a war. A talk. Earth said yes. The meeting took place in Geneva, in a plain building with no fancy tech, just chairs, tables, and windows that looked out on green hills. The human leaders wore simple uniforms, no medals, no glowing armor, just people. The Cathari envoy, a tall figure named Zorvan, stepped inside and looked around. He expected a war room. Instead, he saw a classroom. Maps on the walls. Coffee cups on the table. A young soldier stood by the door holding a rifle, but it looked old, like something from a museum. "Where are your special forces?" Zorvan asked, his voice sharp. The human general, a woman named Reyes, smiled slightly. "We don't have them here today," Zorvan frowned. "Then who fought us at Epsilon 9? Who killed our soldiers on the freighter?" "Regulars," Reyes said. "Just regular soldiers. Like the one by the door." The envoy turned. The young soldier met his eyes and nodded politely. He looked like he could be a student or a farmer, not a killer. The Mirathi elder chimed softly. "Your people use no enhancements, no battle drugs, no neural links. How do you fight so well?" Reyes leaned forward. "We train. We learn from our mistakes. And we look out for each other. That's all." The aliens didn't believe her. Not at first, so Reyes offered a demonstration. The next day, they went to a training base outside the city. There, a platoon of 30 human soldiers ran drills. They practiced moving through broken buildings, clearing rooms, helping wounded teammates. They used the same old rifles, the same basic gear. No shields, no drones, just boots on the ground. The aliens watched from a safe platform. At first, they saw nothing special. Just people running, shouting, taking cover. But then the drill changed. Smoke filled the field. Lights went out. Fake enemy fire came from hidden speakers. The humans didn't stop. They used hand signals. They shared ammo. One soldier carried another who pretended to be hurt. They finished the mission in under 10 minutes. The Veln observer whispered, "They moved like one mind." "No," Reyes said. "They moved like a team. That's different." After the drill, the aliens were allowed to speak with the soldiers. The Cathari envoy asked a young private, "Are you special forces?" The private laughed. Me? No, sir. I'm from Nebraska. I joined the Army last year. I fix trucks when I'm not training. Then how did you learn to fight like that? We all learn, the private said. It's part of the job. The Myrathi elder asked another soldier, Do you fear death? The soldier thought for a moment. Yeah, but I fear letting my team down more. That answer stayed with the aliens long after they left. Back in their ships, they argued. The Cathari wanted to prepare for war. The Myrathi thought humans should be studied, not fought. The Veln just wanted to go home. But one thing was clear to all of them. Earth was not hiding super soldiers. There were no secret labs, no gene forges, no hidden armies. The humans they saw, the tired, smiling, ordinary people, were the real thing, and that was more frightening than any monster. When the envoys returned to the Galactic Concord, they gave their reports. The Cathari said, Every human is a threat, not because they are strong, but because they refuse to break. The Myrathi added, Their power is not in their weapons, but in their will. The Veln simply said, Do not make them angry. On Earth, life went on. Kids went to school. Farmers planted crops. Soldiers trained. No one celebrated. No one bragged. They just kept going. But something had changed. The galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity's special forces were just humans doing their duty. And that made every single one of them dangerous. General Reyes stood on a hill that evening, looking at the sunset. Her aide joined her. Do you think they'll leave us alone now? He asked. No, she said. But they'll think twice before attacking again. Because the aliens had learned a hard lesson. It's easy to fear a monster. It's much harder to fear your neighbor, who looks like you, talks like you, and will still stand in front of a bullet to protect someone they've never met. And that was the real secret of Earth. Not power. Not tech, just people. Regular people, and that was enough. The Cathari homeworld, Carvos, was a planet of tall black towers, humming energy grids and proud warriors. For centuries, no enemy had dared attack it. The skies were guarded by fleets. The ground was watched by drones. The people slept safe knowing their empire was untouchable. Then the humans came. It wasn't a huge invasion. Just one carrier group. 3 old ships barely faster than freighters. No planet killers, no secret weapons. But hidden inside those ships were 3,000 human soldiers. Not special forces, not elites. Just regulars from Earth, Mars, and the Belt colonies. Men and women who had trained in deserts, snow, and zero gravity. People who fixed engines, wrote letters home, and drank bad coffee before battle. Their target was the Cathari shipyard at Vorn Reach, the heart of their war machine. If it fell, the hegemony's power would crack. The attack began at night. Human drop pods, rough metal shells with no stealth tech, slammed into the shipyard like falling rocks. Alarms screamed. Cathari soldiers scrambled, expecting a massive fleet. Instead, they found small teams moving fast through the smoke and fire. The humans didn't fight fair. They never did. They used the shipyard's own systems against it. One team hacked a cargo crane to swing a half-built warship into a guard tower. Another flooded coolant lines to short out power grids. A third group, led by a sergeant named Lee, used stolen Cathari uniforms to walk right into the command center. They didn't shoot. They planted bombs and walked out. The Cathari were confused. Where were the energy weapons? The drones? The super soldiers? These humans carried rifles, knives, and radios. They shouted simple commands. Cover left. Grenade out. Move, move, move. But they moved like water, filling every gap, using every shadow. At first, the Cathari fought back hard. They had numbers. They had armor. But fear had taken root. Every human they saw, they thought, is this one of the regulars? The ones who held Epsilon 9? The ones who killed our shock troopers with bullets and guts? That fear made them slow, made them second guess, made them hesitate, and hesitation got them killed. In the main docking bay, a young private named Diaz, yes, the same Diaz from Mars Colony 3, led a squad of 6 through a maze of pipes and catwalks. They were low on ammo. 2 were hurt, but they reached the reactor control room. Diaz didn't have a fancy hacking tool. She used a wrench and a stolen data pad. She overloaded the safety valves. Run, she yelled. They barely made it out before the explosion lit up the sky. Back on the Cathari command ship, Vrak Tol, the same commander from the first encounter, watched in horror. His best defenses were crumbling not from firepower but from clever, stubborn humans who refused to die quietly. "Order full retreat," he shouted. "Scuttle the shipyard if you must, but do not let them take it whole." But it was too late. Within hours, the humans had done the impossible. They didn't hold the shipyard. They didn't need to. They destroyed it. Then they vanished, boarding their dropships, vanishing into the dark. The Cathari counted their losses. 4 warships damaged, 2,000 soldiers dead or missing, and the pride of their fleet reduced to scrap. But the real damage was deeper. In the days that followed, Cathari soldiers refused to patrol alone. Outposts asked for double guards. New recruits whispered about the regulars like they were ghosts. Even veteran commanders checked every shadow twice. The High Command held an emergency meeting. They reviewed every report, every battle, every human action. Then they issued a new order, stamped in red across every military file. All Terran ground units, regardless of rank, role, or appearance, are to be treated as Tier 0 threats. Avoid direct engagement. If contact is made, assume extreme lethality. Even conscripts, medics, or engineers may be combat capable. Retreat and regroup is preferred over frontal assault. The name Special Forces faded. In its place, a new name spread through the galaxy: the Regulars. It was no longer a joke. It was a warning. On Earth, no parade was held. No speeches were made. The soldiers who returned were tired, quiet, and glad to be home. Some hugged their families. Others just slept for 2 days straight. General Reyes visited a hospital where wounded troops were recovering. She sat by the bed of a young medic who had carried 3 soldiers to safety during the raid. "You did good," Reyes said. The medic shrugged. "Just my job, ma'am, that was the truth." None of them thought they were special. They were just people who said yes when asked to serve. But across the stars, empires changed their plans. Trade routes shifted to avoid human space. War councils added new rules. Do not provoke Earth. Assume every human vessel is armed. If humans offer peace, accept it. The Marathi sent gifts, crystals that glowed with soft light. The Veln opened trade talks. Even the Cathari, bitter and shaken, sent a message. "We will not attack again. If you do not," Earth didn't gloat. They knew peace was fragile. So they kept training, kept building, kept watching the stars, because they understood something the galaxy was only beginning to learn. Humanity's strength wasn't in weapons or warships. It was in the quiet courage of ordinary people who stood up when others ran, who shared their last bullet, who believed in something bigger than themselves. And that was why, from that day on, the most feared words in the galaxy were not special forces. They were simply, "It's just the Regulars."